It was a mild spring morning in Corvallis, Oregon. 19-year-old Brooke Wilberger was busy with a small chore, wiping down the outdoor lights at an apartment complex just across from where her sister lived. It was the kind of everyday moment that could have belonged to anyone. But in just a short time, everything shifted. Her cleaning supplies sat abandoned. Her shoes were left behind, and Brooke had vanished. What followed would grow into one of Oregon's most unsettling mysteries. Let's turn to today's case. Brooke Wilberger was 19, the fifth of 6 children in a lively Oregon family. She had a natural energy that carried into everything she did: basketball, snowboarding, running. Her drive made her stand out in school and in sports. At 16, she began dating Justin, a boy she had grown up with. Both came from deeply religious homes in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and their relationship was grounded in the faith they shared. When Justin left for a 2-year mission to Venezuela, Brooke chose her own path, heading to Brigham Young University in Utah. Her decision was shaped by her own childhood struggles. Brooke hadn't spoken until she was 4 years old, an early challenge that inspired her to study speech pathology. She wanted to help others overcome the same obstacles she had faced. Though she was gentle by nature, Brooke was also known for standing firm in her values and speaking out when it mattered most. After finishing her freshman year, she was eager to spend the summer back home in Oregon. Like many students, she hoped to make a little money during the break. Her sister Stephanie, who managed the Oak Park apartments in Corvallis with her husband, offered her a place to stay and some work around the complex. It seemed like the perfect arrangement. Brooke could earn extra cash while being close to family and friends. On the morning of May 24, 2004, Brooke began her chores at the apartments. Around 10 a.m., Stephanie saw her outside, filling a bucket with water to clean the outdoor lights. The sisters planned to meet for lunch later that day, but when the afternoon passed and Brooke didn't show up, Stephanie's concern grew. She went outside with her children, expecting to spot Brooke talking with a neighbor or wrapping up her tasks. Instead, she found Brooke's cleaning supplies left beside a lamppost. Even more troubling were her flip-flops, broken and smeared with mud, as though she had been pulled out of them. Stephanie and her husband searched frantically before realizing that Brooke's phone, purse, and car keys were still locked inside her vehicle. By 3 p.m., it was clear something was very wrong. The police were called, and from the beginning, investigators treated the case as urgent. Lieutenant Ron Noble explained later that, while adults are usually free to disappear if they choose, Brooke wasn't the type to vanish without a word. Reports from neighbors soon confirmed everyone's fears. Around 10:30 that morning, some recalled hearing a scream, though no one actually saw what happened. As word spread, the search gained urgency. Police canvassed the apartment complex, interviewed residents, and began reviewing an enormous list of registered sex offenders in the region, nearly 2,000 in total. Brooke's boyfriend Justin was also contacted, but he was quickly cleared. He was thousands of miles away on his church mission in Venezuela. For Brooke's family, the idea that she was missing was unbearable. She was a young woman with deep ties to her faith, her family, and her future. She dreamed of marriage, of raising children, and of dedicating her life to service. Now her sudden disappearance left not only her loved ones, but the entire community shaken. A chilling question began to surface. If Brooke could vanish in broad daylight, who might be next? Her case quickly became one of the most widely covered in Oregon's history. Within days, hundreds of volunteers joined the search, combing through fields, rivers, and wooded areas. The FBI stepped in to assist, and reported sightings of Brooke began to trickle in from across the state and beyond. Each new lead brought a flicker of hope, but every one ended in disappointment. Just days into the investigation, detectives focused on a man named Sungkoo Kim, a 30-year-old living with his parents about 80 miles from Corvallis. Kim had a reputation for being reclusive, and his name was already linked to a string of unusual crimes, stealing women's underwear from college dorms, including at Oregon State University, not far from where Brooke disappeared. When police searched his home, they uncovered thousands of stolen undergarments and tens of thousands of disturbing images and videos on his computer. Many showed graphic acts of violence and sexual assault. Even more alarming, investigators found a file written shortly after Brooke vanished. It read like a dark manual for committing a sexual crime while avoiding capture, listing what clothes to wear, what tools to carry, and how to cover one's tracks. For a moment, it seemed like detectives had their suspect. But the evidence didn't line up. Records from his computer, phone, and even store receipts proved Kim was at home with his father at the time Brooke went missing. While his behavior was deeply troubling, and he would later serve 7 years in prison for burglary and related charges, he was ruled out as a suspect in Brooke's case. The setback was crushing for her family. What had seemed like a breakthrough dissolved into another dead end. Days turned into weeks, then into months. And with each passing day, the odds of finding Brooke alive grew slimmer. Still, investigators pressed forward. Attention turned to reports of a dark green minivan. Witnesses described it as a 1997 model with Minnesota plates, seen circling near Oregon State University the day Brooke disappeared. One employee, Bob, remembered spotting the van in a parking lot, where the driver struck up an unsettling conversation with a female student. The encounter was disturbing enough that she later reported it to staff. Another young woman had a similar story. She was walking when the van pulled in front of her. The driver got out, asked for directions, and slid open the back door, sending off alarm bells that made her hurry away. Then there was Brian, a man who had previously called 911 about the van's reckless driving. Investigators asked him to come forward with what he had seen. Piece by piece, a picture was beginning to take shape. But the question remained, who was behind the wheel? And was the van connected to Brooke's disappearance at all? As the months wore on, the once vast search effort for Brooke Wilberger began to fade. The crowds of volunteers shrank, and daily life slowly pressed forward for most of the community. But for Brooke's family, the silence was unbearable. Each passing day without answers made the weight of uncertainty heavier. Then, in November 2004, over 1,400 miles away in Albuquerque, New Mexico, a startling event breathed new life into the case. A woman named Dara was driving with her daughters when they saw something shocking. A young woman, completely naked and frantic, running across a busy street. She stumbled toward a nearby restaurant, yanking at the locked doors in desperation. Dara pulled over immediately, brought the woman into her car, and dialed 911. The victim was a 22-year-old exchange student from Russia, and her story was harrowing. She explained that a man had grabbed her from behind as she walked, pressed a knife to her throat, and forced her into his car. He assaulted her, tied her hands with her own shoelaces, and eventually stopped at an apartment complex. The moment he stepped away from the vehicle, she managed to break free and escape. Her description of the attacker was striking: a tall, heavy-set white man with a shaved head and beard. Even more memorable was his car, a red two-door with floral upholstery and a stuffed toy hanging near the window. Within hours, police had a name: Joel Patrick Courtney. Courtney, a 38-year-old father of 3, was found only blocks away, sitting in his car with a crack pipe and a knife. His past quickly came to light. He was a convicted sex offender with a criminal record stretching back years. In 1991, he had been imprisoned for sexual assault, and his life had spiraled through drugs, arrests, and violence across several states. Family members painted an even darker picture. His sister revealed that Joel had tested at a genius-level IQ as a child, but by age 11 was already using hard drugs. As a teenager, he became involved with Satanism, dropped out of school, and cycled through juvenile detention. By adulthood, he had already committed multiple assaults. His sister even admitted that when they were younger, Joel would sneak into her room at night, choke her, and attempt to assault her. For a time, it looked as though stability might come when Joel married Rosie, who became the mother of his 3 children. But drugs and alcohol continued to fuel his violence. Rosie eventually sought a restraining order after Joel attacked her, and his life once again spiraled downward into substance abuse and arrests. When Joel was arrested in Albuquerque, he was charged with rape, kidnapping, and assault of the Russian student. During questioning, one detective noticed the eerie similarities between this attack and Brooke Wilberger's disappearance in Oregon. Both victims were young and blonde, both taken in daylight, both restrained and attacked in nearly identical ways. That detective reached out to Oregon investigators, and the connection was immediate. Records confirmed what they feared. Joel Courtney had been in Corvallis on the very day Brooke vanished. Soon, the case exploded in the public eye. Television networks broke the news that investigators now believed Brooke had been murdered and that the man in custody in New Mexico was responsible. Although Brooke's body had not been found, she was now presumed dead. Meanwhile, authorities in Oregon began building their case carefully. One of the most important discoveries came when they tracked down the vehicle Joel had been driving in Corvallis. It was the same dark green minivan that multiple witnesses had reported circling near Oregon State University. Forensic experts stripped the van down to its frame, testing every inch and every fiber. The wait for answers dragged on, but when the results finally came back, they were undeniable. Forensic testing on Joel Courtney's van brought the truth to light. Brooke's DNA was discovered inside, and strands of her blonde hair were found tucked into a hairband in one of his bags. The evidence confirmed she had been sexually assaulted. By spring 2005, prosecutors made a major announcement. A Benton County grand jury indicted Joel Courtney on 19 separate charges, including multiple counts of aggravated murder, kidnapping, rape, sexual abuse, and sodomy. In Oregon, aggravated murder carried the possibility of the death penalty. There was, however, a complication. Courtney was already facing charges in New Mexico for the brutal assault on the Russian exchange student. Prosecutors explained it could be years before he was returned to Oregon to face trial for Brooke's murder. The two cases highlighted a painful contrast. In New Mexico, the victim had escaped and survived, which allowed police to catch him. In Oregon, Brooke had never come home. Despite the mounting evidence, Joel Courtney denied knowing Brooke at all. Prosecutors later revealed that when presented with the indictment, he spent the afternoon laughing with fellow inmates. Outwardly, he appeared confident, but cracks began to show. During a visit with his mother, his comments about Brooke revealed a chilling belief that he would never be held accountable. In early 2007, his defense tried to delay the process, claiming he was mentally unfit for trial. After extensive evaluations, the court ruled he was competent. For Brooke's family, the news was a wave of relief. Her mother later described pulling her car to the side of the road and dancing in joy, grateful that Joel would finally face justice. But before Oregon could try him, Courtney had to answer for what he did in New Mexico. He eventually pleaded guilty to kidnapping and raping the exchange student and was sentenced to 18 years in prison. Even then, he showed no remorse, mocking the proceedings and showing open contempt for the judge. For Oregon investigators, his arrogance only fueled their resolve. They believed Joel knew exactly where Brooke was, and they swore they would uncover the truth. By 2009, 5 years had passed. Joel's trial in Oregon was approaching, with the death penalty still on the table. Prosecutors knew that if Brooke's remains were ever to be recovered, it might only happen through a deal. For years, Joel had used Brooke's body as leverage. Now, after repeated assaults by other inmates and without access to the medication he wanted, he finally began negotiating. He demanded two things: that he be allowed to serve the rest of his New Mexico sentence near his family, and that the death penalty be removed. In exchange, he would confess and reveal where Brooke was buried. Desperate for answers, Brooke's family supported the agreement. More than 5 years after she disappeared, Brooke was finally found. Joel led investigators to a remote, overgrown road about 12 miles west of Corvallis. Beneath a fallen tree, her remains lay hidden where he had left them. Dental records confirmed her identity, but her mother knew the truth instantly. Brooke's silver Christmas watch, a gift she had once given her, was still on her wrist. For the Wilberger family, it was bittersweet closure. They were grateful Joel would spend the rest of his life behind bars, never again to harm anyone, but the pain of loss remained. In court, Joel admitted what investigators had long suspected. That morning in May, he had been driving around Corvallis, hunting for a victim. Joel later admitted that before targeting Brooke, he had tried approaching 2 other young women. When he saw Brooke working alone, he changed his plan. Pretending to be a delivery driver, he managed to get close enough to threaten her with a knife and force her into his van. He tied her with tape, assaulted her, and drove her deep into the woods. Brooke was kept alive through the night. By the next day, Joel bludgeoned her to death. He later claimed he hadn't planned to kill her at first, but when she fought back, he decided she couldn't be allowed to live. He hid her body so carefully that, without his eventual confession, it might never have been found. The community was stunned. The crime had unfolded in the quiet Benton County coastal range, not far from small stores and family homes. Neighbors struggled to accept that such violence had happened in their backyard. Joel never apologized to Brooke's family and showed no regret. He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. His sister, Dina, later spoke about the family's grief. From the moment they heard his name connected to the case, she said they prayed that if he was guilty, he would confess so Brooke could finally be found. When that day came, she broke down in tears. Investigators believe Joel may have been involved in other unsolved crimes. The FBI has linked him to at least 3 additional assaults and murders in Oregon. One prosecutor even compared him to Richard Ramirez, the infamous Night Stalker, calling Joel one of the most evil people she had ever faced. For the people of Corvallis, Brooke's case left a lasting mark. At the LaSalle Stewart Center, her mother stood before the community, thanking the countless volunteers who had searched for her daughter. She reminded everyone that this journey was not about closure, but about love, the same love Brooke gave so freely. The family promised to keep Brooke's spirit alive by living with kindness, strength, and compassion. Still, the pain never faded. Brooke's sister Stephanie admitted she replays that morning over and over, wondering if anything could have changed the outcome. She said no matter how much time passes, peace will never come. Brooke Wilberger was just 19, a college student with her whole life ahead of her. In minutes, a simple task outside an apartment complex turned into a nightmare she didn't deserve. Justice was eventually served, but her loss remains a wound that time will never heal.